Okay, so in this blog, what I'm going to do is look at some of the qualities in or material differences between lino for Linocut and then the different types of wood that you can use for block printing, relief printing, intaglio, whatever you want to call it. So what I've got is a piece of boxwood. This is like a super dense piece of wood. It's what was traditionally used for block printing back in the day. Lots of people like it. Apparently you can get really fine detail on that. I quite like the fact that you can maintain that kind of natural edge and curvature because it's literally a cross section, you see. So they call it end grain because you just slice across the end of the grain, literally. So it's boxwood. I think people also use something called lemon wood, called that because when you cut it, it smells citrusy. But anyway, there you go. This is side grain. So instead of cutting across like that, it's more like it's cut along like that. It's a different type of wood. I think some people call it, what is it, tulip wood, something like that. It's all in the blog, so you can read down. I forget the details sometimes, so sorry about that. And then this is Japanese ply. So Japanese ply is literally just plywood, isn't it? So it's like layers of thin layers of wood kind of put down and glued together. It's quite a soft wood, so I'm presuming that was going to be a bit easier to do. So yeah, I like to do fairly detailed prints. Well, I find myself doing them all the time anyway. So what I've done in order to try and create a bit of a comparison is do some drawings of old airplanes, because I really like old airplanes. And I've always wanted to do it. So I've drawn out a couple on these pieces of material, and I'm just going to have a go at cutting them and seeing how they respond, what they're like, so I can kind of tell you guys what they like to use. I'm going to be using the file tools. These are my preferred carving tools. I've got a little kind of V-shaped 11 gauge, and then I've got number 9 U gauge, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. So let's start with the lino, probably the one that everyone's most familiar with. Yeah, that's how it goes. So on this, I've got some lines. There's going to be a large dark area on this drawing. It's the underside of the aeroplane that's kind of staying in the shade. But then we've got a bit more detail coming up the side here and showing some of the light areas. So the thing that's really great about working with lino, I guess, in fact, I'm going to get one other tool. That is a V-shaped little 12, number 12. It's actually one of my favourites, so I should have picked that up to start with. So yeah, the great thing about lino is it doesn't have any grain, and as a material it enables you to kind of carve all sorts of different directions pretty easily, fairly fluidly, and make all different types of marks. So I think it's really why so many people like it. Being honest with you, I haven't done a lot of stuff with wood, so I'm just as interested as I hope you are to find out what the differences are like. So I'm not going to do the whole thing right now, but just to kind of show you, if we find a spot and just start, make sure your tool is nice and sharp, and you see there I get a nice easy curved line. And it's just so easy to start to kind of build up and describe the areas that you want with the different tool. As I say, I'm using a little V-shaped tool here, and super easy. Pretty much anyone could do this, and I think that's probably why so many people get into relief printing and they start with lino. It's just really, really, really simple to work with. It's really, really nice. So you can see pretty much minimal effort, no time, and I'm just flying through that little bit there, which is great. So lino, really easy to like get detail like that, and if you've got other areas like here, I've got sort of like clouds, which I'm just gonna leave and have this kind of white area. If you were doing a 2-color block print, you could, you know, put a bit more detail in the sky with some other blocks. Something that I want to do a bit more of, because I always end up doing lots of black and white prints. Someone's in trouble, right? So yeah, really quick and easy to work with it. Like, that's why, as I say, people just love it, right? And it's cheap, and you can buy it in rolls. You can buy it in all different types of pre-cut sizes, or like me, you can probably just chop into it and make things up whatever size you like. Yeah, love it, great, really easy, really, really, really easy to use. So that is lino. Next, let's have a look at ply. This is literally the first time I'm going to cut into ply. I haven't used it, so keen to find out what it's like. It does have a grain, so is the grain going to affect how it wants to respond to the directions that I want to take the tool in? Don't know. Very exciting. Let's find out. I'll start by going on this little bit here with the propeller. I'll go against the grain. I always like to go against the grain. And yeah, I can feel that, whereas with lino, that would have just really easily glided through, and I would have been left with the fine line area in between. That has just broken off. That's just like flaked off. So not a terrific start. Maybe it's the tool, who knows? So let's try a smaller one. And that, as I push down, it's like it sort of flattens. So my immediate feeling is that I'm not hugely blown away, but then, you know, maybe it would be better for people who prefer to work in bigger, bolder, kind of chunkier, more geometric type compositions. When you get into like super fine detail, which is the kind of stuff I like, it might just not be the right material. Let's just see what it's like if I go with the grain. Let's get a sort of sharp V-shaped tool here. Okay, so this is kind of more in the direction of the grain, and that is a bit better. Still doesn't feel like I get quite the same level of detail, but it's definitely easier using the grain and going with the direction of the grain. So that's interesting, but I wouldn't say I'm blown away. When it comes to like these areas up the top here, like I've got, this is just going to be a very light, practically white area. So I'll try and just carve away a big old chunk of it, and you can see there, it comes away pretty easily. I mean, I'm going again in the direction of the grain, and that's okay. If I go the other way, it kind of resists a bit more, but actually that's not too bad, you know. So I just think that maybe if you want to go into like super fine detail, might not be the material to use. But if you're like, a lot of printers don't go into the detail I do, to be honest. So maybe I can appraise my earlier immediate kind of feelings about this material and say actually maybe it would work, as long as you're not looking to kind of get super granular fine detail. That is a really, really nice clear sharp line there, and if I was to carry on and kind of wipe that out, I'm sure I could get that really nice and crispy. It's just around here in these areas that I reckon you're going to struggle. But, you know, practice makes perfect, doesn't it? And maybe, once you've used it a bit more, you could start getting some results. And, you know, half the time it's just about understanding the material qualities that you're working with, and then limitations can over time become advantages as you become more of a, I suppose, a bit of an expert in working with it. So anyway, so that's ply. I'm going to kind of cut all of these out. I'm just not going to bore you all with it right now, because I'd send everyone to sleep. But I'll cut them all out. I'll put them on the bottom of this blog so you can all see what the end results look like. And then I'm going to also do a print, see how the materials actually print. So anyway, that's my Hawker Hurricane on plywood. Plywood, let's see. The jury's out, but doesn't feel as kind of free and easy as my my good friend Lino. So nice effort. Right, so next one is side grain. I've used side grain before. I actually quite like it. I think it's again, you're going to come up against the issue that you're going against the grain at times, but I find that you can actually achieve some pretty fine detail. And when you're then printing, whether you print by hand or in a book press or an etching press or something like that, the details get picked out quite nicely and are then passed on to the paper. So I really like this. I think side grain's pretty good, and it's not that expensive when you compare it to this stuff. So anyhow, let's have a little play. So underneath my airplane here, I've got a whole load of fields, and the fields have got plough lines that go in all different directions. So let's just have a crack at some of these, because some will be going with the grain, others will be going against the grain. So I'm a little V-shaped tool, and there we go. So unlike the plywood, which when I went against the grain on fine details, I lost the lines that I was hoping to kind of retain in between my cut marks. The wood basically just flaked off. This doesn't do it. This retains that shape and it retains the wood. And so actually you can get some pretty good detail with this. Love it. So that is great. Now let's try and do one in the other direction, if I can get the light right so I can actually see my pencil lines. All right, and then going with the grain, surprise, surprise, everything's hunky-dory. So I find this a lovely material to work with, and I'm sure that I will work with it a lot in the future on other projects. When I'm sort of getting to the end of a little mark, you can see there the burr, is that the word? I'm going to call it that. The burr kind of sticks. I can knock that off with the tool, so it's not really proving to be much of an issue. Thank goodness. So that's pretty neat. Side grain working pretty nicely. Pretty happy with that. What's it like on bigger areas? Let's have a look. So you can hear that cutting through there nicely. Oops, be careful, pull. And I can go in all sorts of different directions. And that's working, oh, almost flaked a bit off there. That's working pretty well though. So, side grain, pretty happy with that. Again, we'll see how this one comes out. I've done portraits with it before of artists that I really like. So I've done Edward Wordsworth, the vorticist, and Paul Nash, two of my faves, big heroes of mine, and I really like the results. You can check them out on my Instagram, that's at Drawcut Ink Press, and yeah, I think as a material it's a real pleasure to work with. Recommend it. Again, comes in lots of different sizes. It's a bit more expensive than lino, but it's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg, so that's pretty great. Side grain. Now, boxwood, end grain boxwood. It's really expensive, so expensive in fact that I actually went online and bought some boxwood logs and slice them up. So I've got loads of these. it ended up being much cheaper. I paid about £30 online and sliced them all up, sanded them down, pardon me, so they're nice and smooth. If you go and buy it in the shops, you would probably pay about £25 or £30 for a small kind of sheet of it. All right, party people, it's third time lucky on recording this bit. Okay, so this is boxwood. This is also known or more widely referred to as end grain. The reason it's end grain is because they just cut across the end of the grain basically, whereas side grain, as I said earlier, would be like cutting down and making strips sort of down the wood like that. There's a couple of different types of end grain, but the most sort of, I suppose, traditional is boxwood. Basically, it's a really, really slow growing hedge. And you get these bits of, these chunky bits of like trunk, I suppose, that because it takes so long to grow, I mean, it's really slow growing, and it's that slow growing that causes the density, basically. So it's a super, super, super hard wood. And because of that density and because of that hardness, that is why you can carve into it, and that's why historically it's been the material of choice for a lot of printers. Obviously, back in medieval times, they didn't have lino. I bet they wish they did. Well, let's find out actually, because maybe it's better. So I'm going to just have a crack at having a go at it with like a V-shaped tool. And straight off the bat, it is tough. It is got a lot more resistance, and 100% you are going to be sharpening your tools much more often using this material bad boy. But it's it maintains the detail, and you can get a very fine line into it, so that's quite nice, awfully nice. And let's go up this way here. Yeah, maintains all of the maintains a lot of the detail. Use a U-shaped gouge there on this sort of bit that I want to be nice and light, and yeah, it's pretty good. You saw me then, I almost slipped, and that is definitely going to be a danger of using this material, I think. And the reason is because it's so tough, you really have to exert a bit of pressure to cut it, and that is where you're obviously always going to be in danger of slipping. So you just need to be I think you need to be conscious of that, and you need to be careful of that, because if you spent hours and hours making a beautiful print block and then you just slip at the wrong moment, you're going to cock it up, and you'll probably have a bit of a tantrum or something like that. It's definitely going to give you a bad 5 minutes. So be careful. And also, you need to be careful when you're using sharp tools, because if you slip, you're going to stab yourself in the finger. And that is pretty rubbish. I've got a nice slice in the end of my finger from when I did it to myself the other day. So yeah, just be careful on it. It's really, really tough. Lots of detail, I imagine you're going to get some lovely prints out of that. You're going to need to be patient, but patience is a virtue, so nothing wrong with that. I think if you are after sort of faster results, or you have a slightly less patience, then I'd probably go for something else. When it comes to wood, I think if you're like me and you've used lino for ages, and curiosity's got the better of you, and you want to try something new, I would go for this. Go for the side grain. It's cheaper, so you're not going to spend a fortune on it and then discover you don't like it and go back to lino. You might discover that you actually love it, and I think it enables you. You can use all the different tools, and it responds really nicely to all of them. You can go in different directions. The grain isn't going to cause you too much problem. It's not so hard like that that you're going to potentially slip and make some big errors, and it's not going to blunten your tools super quickly either. So I think this is great. It's cheaper as well, if I've not already said that. You can transfer your designs onto it, and it's fun to work with. So yeah, I guess lino versus wood. I mean, it's a silly name for a blog anyway, but kind of gives you the idea. I think that just from purely working with the materials, I love lino. That's never going to change. I'm a massive fan, and nothing's going to dissuade me from using it. But the side grain's also really, really nice. It prints really lovely. I have printed with it before, and what I'll do is I'll finish off cutting these out. I will, and then I'll have a crack at printing with them both. I'll probably just, instead of using an etching press, I'll either use like a book press or a trusty wooden spoon to just hand print them. And I'll share the results, but I think you'll get really good results from these. I mean, I've never used the boxwood or the plywood, but I'll give them a fair go, and I'll share the results of that. You'll see all of them on my Instagram. That's at Drawcut Ink Press, or just look down on this blog and you'll see it. On my website, that's www.drawcutinkpress.com if you're watching this just on YouTube. So yeah, come check me out, follow me on the socials, holler at me. You can fill out the old contact form and send me a message, and yeah, sign up to the newsletter too, so you can stay in touch. I will be posting more soon. Thanks very much.